Viewers, tonight we are going to have two debates. The first one is about cricket. Cricket in our country is hugely popular. It's almost like a religion to many in our country. But while the fans have continued to love and support their cricketers, their players, the sportsmen haven't really had the same kind of support from the administration, simply because the cricket administration is in a mess by itself. 2 years ago, when Justice Lodha Committee report was presented to the Supreme Court and then the court appointed a committee of administrators, one hoped that finally there would be a cleanup of all the mess at BCCI. But it seems, viewers, that politics and power games haven't really gone away. If anything, it seems that they have also gotten to the COA. Of the 4 members who were given the responsibility to bring in some order in BCCI, 2 quit a while back. Now we are left with only 2 members, Vinod Rai and Diana Adalji, who are busy fighting with each other. So tonight I ask, isn't it time for COA to finish the job that it was assigned to do and step aside? For how long will the cricket administration suffer? Can a 2-member committee really run the way cricket is done and played in this country? That's the big debate. But first, here is a report on the latest flashpoint.
Indian women's cricket reigns now in the hands of WV Raman with his appointment as India's next coach. He was the surprise name to take over a role fraught with a lot of controversy recently. Raman brings his experience of coaching Tamil Nadu and Bengal's Ranji Trophy teams and his stint as coach of the India Under-19 team. But he wasn't even first choice of the selection panel. They wanted Gary Kirsten, but his IPL contract with the RCB in the IPL ruled him out for conflict of interest reasons.
What we are being told is that Gary Kirsten was the first choice for the women's cricket team, but he had a conflict of interest situation as he is contracted with the Royal Challengers Bengaluru, and that is why Gary Kirsten gave up the job of the women's cricket team. In fact, he was offered this job, but because of this he couldn't, and because second in preference was WV Raman, he has got this job.
The outgoing coach Ramesh Pawar didn't even make the shortlist in what has been a tumultuous chapter that saw the women's team thrown into turmoil after Pawar and the team's senior pro Mithali Raj crossed swords publicly. But it may not be the final chapter of this story, with the process of selection of the team also under the lens.
The mail came yesterday from BCCI, and only half an hour before that mail, Diana Adalji had written to Vinod Rai saying that this process is unconstitutional, this process is a sham, and that Vinod Rai couldn't have done it without her approval.
Indian women's cricket has seen some real highs over the last couple of years, and with the coach's position now virtually settled, fans will hope that it's the cricket that does all the talking from now on. Sports Bureau, Mirror Now.
It's a good evening to our panelists. Saad Bingjan, former cricketer with us, Mr. V. Srivatsa, senior sports journalist, Dr. Bimal Soni, deputy president of the Rajasthan Cricket Association. But first, I'm going to go across to our consulting editor, Vinay Tiwari, on this issue. Vinay, in her letter, Diana Adalji speaks about multiple things that where she feels that the process wasn't followed, that rules were broken, right from appointing the ad hoc committee to then not going to the selection committee about this decision. But this has been a sore point for both of the committee of administration members. Do you think they just made a complete mess out of it right from start?
Tanvi, I think this is not the first. This is actually the latest in the series of messes that have happened. And I must say this, and it may sound a little harsh and extreme, but I think our cricket administration has now reached as much of a bottom as it had perhaps reached during the match-fixing scandal and during the controversy surrounding Mr. N. Srinivasan when he dug his heels in. I mean, I've rarely seen a messier situation in life where you have international superstars being humiliated like Gary Kirsten has been. His conflict of interest was known right from the start. He was a part of the IPL franchisee. They allowed his application to come in. They allowed him to go through the process. He made a presentation. Everybody was impressed with him. He was the top person chosen by the ad hoc committee. And then you tell him that you're not eligible. That is one. earlier, the mess over the way the whole Ramesh Pawar Diana issue was handled, you had mails being leaked, you had allegations flying around in public from both sides. You had two players, the captain and the vice captain of the one-day team, actually coming public and backing a particular coach, which one member of the COA objecting and disagreeing with, almost telling you the players didn't matter. In a situation where the exact opposite happened in the men's cricket team, where Virat Kohli's opinion on Karil Kumble was taken into account and Shastri came in. It's a royal mess. And I wonder why the Supreme Court on its own, suo motu, has not intervened in a situation where they had wanted to fix it. And it's only ended up getting messier and messier. I mean, I don't know who the hell is running Indian cricket anymore, Tanvi.
Well, I feel it's just one man who goes by the name of Vinod Rai. Now, he may have got a lot of support and a lot of brownie points for what he did in his previous role as a CAG chief, but for one man to take these decisions, I may be wrong, but this isn't really acceptable right away. Sath, don't you think that when the two other members of COA resigned, and it was just these two left, and they started to have disagreements right away, should they have not gone back to the court and said, well, this is a problem, there are only two of us and we keep disagreeing on everything, and Vinod Rai keeps overruling the other one?
You're absolutely right. You actually hit the nail on the head, and that was going to be my point, which you've taken over, Tanvi. But the thing is that whether it's Diana Adalji or whether it is Vinod Rai, like you rightfully say, why haven't they written to, one second, it's fallen off. Why haven't they written to the Supreme Court and said, listen, in any transparent, in any answerable, huge cooperation, there have to be disagreements. And when there are disagreements, you need at least 3 people, if not 5. You need an odd number when there's going to be a vote. Why haven't they been fighting for the third person? 2 have gone. Why has Diana written to the Supreme Court or asking for the third person, or has Vinod Rai written? Because if they haven't, then I'm sorry, they've fallen, they've committed exactly the same mistake that the BCCI has been doing as a monopoly, playing God to 1.2 billion people's cricket, not being answerable, not transparent, not logical, completely illogical, the two of them, hiding behind politics. One fellow's hiding behind, I'm the God and whatever I say works, and whoever this lady is with me, she has no voice. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's absolutely utter stupidity, and I hope the court throws both of them out and appoints a 3-member committee, if not a 5.
Yes, and I hope that the job that they were supposed to do in the first place gets done quickly. I mean, it's been 2 years, and all that we hear is how other BCCI stakeholders are not listening to the Committee of Administrators, and that this is not happening and that is not happening, and XYZ is stalling the process. Now there is infighting various other groups. It is a complete mess. Dr. Bimal Soni, I don't understand. Who is responsible, do you think, for the fact that the elections still have not been held, that it took so long for them to even draft the new constitution, and that 2 people are now running the entire cricket administration?
Tanvi, I think we couldn't have had a bigger mess than this. There was a time when BCCI was considered as the well-run body, and it was considered as a model for other sports organizations. Later on, when we had this conflict in BCCI, obviously COA was made by Supreme Court, but now with 2 members have gone, there's a conflict of interest at all levels, and both are disagreeing on all issues. I think Supreme Court should immediately intervene, and both being senior people, Diana being an administrator for last 15-20 years, they should write to the Supreme Court, get another administrator, at least minimum of 3, and or otherwise takes fast actions and see that normalcy is returned in the administration of Indian cricket.
But don't you think, Dr. Soni, that in the first...
And, I am sorry to say...
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry to say, but Supreme Court should intervene. If they don't, somebody from some cricketers or some association, they should write to Supreme Court and appeal to them to take necessary action.
Yes, in fact, I just want to also read out to our viewers what Justice Lodha thinks of all of this. And he gave an interview recently to Times of India where he said the committee is not able to take unanimous decisions, that things have gone haywire, and it is very unfortunate what it has come to, that the BCCI doesn't seem to be serious about the Lodha committee reforms. He has doubts whether COA is functioning the right way. For Justice Lodha, it's very simple. The two of them should sit together and sort out their own issues, because they're supposed to be a part of the same committee, not warring members or enemies who are supposed to just face off with each other. Mr. Srivatsa, what do you think is the way forward? One is, of course, that Supreme Court again steps into this mess and comes up with another way of cleaning it up. But is there any other option?
See, I can't imagine, something like this happening. See, there are two sets of people. There is a cricket board officials who are working, and also the COA. I mean, both of them can't be sitting together and deciding and fighting with each other. Now, in this case, the board treasurer is siding with Diana Edulji, and he is questioning Vinod Rai for whatever the reason. I agree with Vinay Tiwari. I think cricket board has gone back to the same old ways. There's nothing new about it. And then, first of all, this COA has been appointed essentially to carry out the reforms, to implement, to oversee the implementation of the reforms. And that has not been done. And we don't know still how many associations have really fallen in line and what's happening. Instead of that, they are meddling with day-to-day affairs and doing things which has no meaning. First of all, how can you have this kind of a situation where you have to appoint a coach and you can't even come to an agreement?
Yeah, so
it's very easy. So you have a process which has been set in motion.
Mr. Srivatsa, to the point that you made, can I just follow it up with this question?
So
who do you also blame for the larger mess? The fact that it's been 2 years, the reforms that were supposed to be done, the changes that were supposed to be done, the elections that were supposed to be held, still haven't been done. Who should we blame for that for?
Frankly, yes. Frankly, I blame Justice Rajendra Mal Lodha for creating this kind of a situation. When, simply he could have taken note of that IPL mess and also Srinivasan's case, and let the board to elect a new set of office bearers and be done with it. In any case, that's going to happen. The only thing is they have defined the terms of office. That's about all. And because of that, for 2 years, it's been going on. You have an acting president, you have an acting secretary. How long can somebody be acting like this?
How long can somebody be acting like this?
And when will you get a new set of office bearers?
Well, Vinod Rai did promise in August, he promised that in 90 days, the elections will be held. So if you do the math, that should have been done by end of November.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are now nearing the end of December and there is no development on this. It just doesn't seem as if they're going to hold elections before the World Cup now. Saab, you wanted to come in earlier. Go ahead, please.
Listen, Tanvi, the Supreme Court, if it believes that it should pierce the corporate veil and put a society or put whatever it feels right and the system is wrong, it's most welcome to do so, but the Supreme Court must understand that the moment it steps into that realm, it will have to devote more of its time into administrating that wherever it's pierced that play, into whichever region it's gone into. If the Supreme Court is not willing to give it that time, then there's no point making these changes in the Societies Act and, even taking this direction. Now, just to tell you, and I want my viewers to know this also, as to this huge monopoly, the biggest cricket giant in the world, and how small and petty it can get. Tanvi, this point, I'm sorry, I have to make this. The fact is that if a test player or he gets incredible amount of pension. If he dies, his wife gets pension. Players who've played more than 25 games get enough pension, they can rest for the rest of their life. What about those poor people who don't even have money to eat? And hundreds and thousands of those poor players who haven't played 25 games. What wrong have they committed? They've devoted their life to cricket. But you think a monopoly like this highly egoistic monopoly like the BCCI is even going to contemplate on changing that? No, it won't. So it is this sort of mentality which has gone right from the bottom, and it is bilkul sad gaya pura. It's gone to the dogs, and we thought that the Supreme Court would come in and put it right, but the people that it's sent over there are so busy fighting each other politically that it's not going to be put right unless everything is changed again.
Everything is changed again. Vinay, what do you think? What's the way forward? Because it seems that the rot that was within the BCCI seems to have now also engulfed the COA.
Two things, Tanvi, and I agree with Mr. Srivatsa on one small thing. Look, Justice R.M. Lodha had good intentions at heart. I think we need to understand one thing. Why did the Supreme Court come into the picture of trying to figure out a solution for the mess in Indian cricket? They came into the picture because there was a reasonable suspicion that enough rot had set in, and somebody had to crack the whip to set it right. That is what led to the formation of the R.M. Lodha Committee, which led to a set of recommendations, and that followed up by the Committee of Administrators. Mr. R.M. Lodha's recommendations, however noble they may be, some of them are rather impractical. And there is a way in which the Indian establishment works. It is impossible for all those recommendations to actually ever get implemented. In the current state of affairs, Tanvi, only Assam and Vidarbha, they are the only two associations who have actually implemented those rules in toto. Rest associations have just not been able to even implement that at all. Now, let's for a moment concede that there is a way out of it. There is an insistence by the court that the R.M. Lodha Committee report has to be implemented in full. The only solution for that is to force an election. Because if you force an election, the boards will have no option but to comply with those norms, however impractical they may be, to participate in those elections. Otherwise, they will not be allowed under the existing scheme. But this reluctance of the administrators currently with Mr. Mirod Rai to hold the elections shows you that he has been no different from any other power-hungry, power-grabber man who sits at the top and doesn't want to let go of it, of arguably the richest sporting body in perhaps the world. I mean, he obviously wants to see the World Cup through and doesn't want to let go of it, and hence the elections have not happened. I mean, I don't know what prevents them from doing it ahead of the election, the World Cup. I mean, this is as bad a situation in cricket as I've ever seen in my entire life of watching cricket, Tanvi.
That doesn't sound very encouraging, Vinay, but Dr. Soni also wanted to come in. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to comment that Supreme Court should immediately intervene, put a time-bound program and see to it that COA warns the associations who don't comply with, don't get voting right. They should immediately implement, and it should be a time-bound program on days. By days, I mean 30 days to implement. Next 60 days, everything should be completed in BCCI. Rather than COA trying to administer Indian cricket. I think that is the worst that could have happened. And if Supreme Court has created it, they should now try and end it. Because we need some solution. Otherwise, we are heading for a disaster.
No, but what is the Supreme Court?
I know it's not easy.
What can the Supreme Court do when again and again and again the Committee of Administrators keeps telling the court that nobody is listening to us, they don't want to do this, they are not implementing, they are not accepting these rules. It's also the individual associations who don't seem to be working together with COA.
No, but then they should also interact and tell what is the reason for it. Couple of associations feel the reforms are wrong. Then they should see that those reforms are discussed and
it shouldn't be. No, Dr. Soni, it shouldn't be like that. The reforms have been accepted by the Supreme Court. Am I wrong here? The reforms have been accepted by the Supreme Court, Saab. It doesn't matter whether anybody else now thinks if it's right or wrong. Go back to the court on your own time and file an appeal. But you cannot defy what has been accepted and ordered by the Supreme Court.
Absolutely, Tanvi, and there are two ways of looking at it. The first way is that it is a monopoly. We have to, one second, Soni Saab, let me finish this. Soni Saab, Soni, can I finish this, please? Mr. Soni, can I come in and finish this? So the first thing is a monopoly. Supreme Court has said, yes, it's a monopoly. Now it's a perfect opportunity now for us to actually go in there and break this monopoly. If a state association does not want to fall in line with what the Supreme Court is saying or with Justice Lodha's recommendations, throw them out. Like in Hyderabad, throw Hyderabad Cricket Association out. Telangana Cricket Association is sitting right there, and they've got the grounds, they've got the money, they've got the wickets, they've got everything. Go, take them in, break the monopoly. These associations over a period of the past 70 years have completely destroyed the ethos of cricket. They are extremely corrupt, and so if they don't want to come and fall in line, why do we need them? Throw them out. It's very, what you said is absolutely right. There are too many associate people sitting on the sidelines who can put up cricket associations in every state, and we can get rid of this monopoly and come up with a transparent system, Tanvi. That's a very good point.
Well, I don't know if the monopoly and the power games and the politics and the ugliness and the dirtiness of it that we wanted to get rid of has actually gone away at all. And it seems all this time it was a huge time wastage for the Supreme Court, for Justice Lodha and all that work that he did, because nothing seems to be changing on ground. I'm completely out of time on this debate. I thank all our panelists, but this is something that perhaps the Supreme Court does need to take note of. Maybe Justice Lodha can raise this issue. Maybe some of the cricket administrations can raise this issue. Maybe Diana Adalji and Vinod Rai need to go back to the Supreme Court and admit that this system has now broken down, that you gave us the most important job in the cricket administration today in this country, and we are making a mess of it because we can't get to agree with each other. And so we can't bring about the changes that you asked us to do. The other two have already walked away. Let's fix this problem. We are a few months away from the World Cup. We need to get our house in order so that it doesn't impact the game. Look at the mess that has now been created over the entire coach controversy for the women cricket team. Do we really want these needless controversies coming up in the future? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining us on this debate. We move on to the other big story of the day.